Hello and happy Tuesday. How are you doing? So welcome to another edition of the Pun Show. And we'll have a few things to talk about today. ICE is still out there murdering people, and Donald Trump is still acting like the 2020 election was rigged, which is just how gullible do you have to believe to still believe that? You know, like you have to be gullible enough to vote for Trump 3 times and still defend him. You have to be gullible enough to still say that tariffs will lower prices and bring back American jobs. Like, how many times do you have to have it proven that Trump is a corrupt, lying idiot before you start believing that Trump is a lying, corrupt, lying idiot? It's like, just stop doubling down. It's okay. It's okay to admit you were wrong. We won't hold it against you, or at least I won't. I guess some people will. I think that's something I criticize Democrats for and liberals is sometimes they don't let people just say that they were wrong about something and grow from it and then move on. So, I'll give you that. Some people need to be better at that. If you want to tell me that you were wrong about Trump all along and that, it turns out that he actually didn't win the 2020 election, I'm perfectly okay with that. I will say, welcome to the fold. Come in, have a bowl of soup with me. Um, I don't know why they insist on just still believing what has been proven over and over again. Hi, Stephanie. How are you doing? I'm assuming that is your cat and not you in your profile picture. It is a lovely kitty. Sometimes Huggy Bear crashes my show, so you might be able to see Huggy Bear today. How are you doing today? Hope you're doing well. So, anyway, we can talk about that. We can talk about the 2020 election. Donald Trump has announced he's going to have this, speech. I guess I haven't double checked on this, but I think somebody said Thursday night. I might be wrong. But anyway, he's going to give this primetime speech on how they're declassifying this election that shows there was foreign interference in the 2020 election, which we already knew there was, going to be foreign, that foreign countries were going to try and interfere in the 2020 election. They did it in the 2016 election too. It's not like we're like, what? So I don't know what he feels like he needs to give a speech on, unless it's going to be some sort of weird thing about, dead people rigging the election or whatever. The whole Argentina thing or Venezuela or whatever it is. I can't even keep track of all the nonsense because it's not worth my effort to go and track down every deranged conspiracy theory. What I do know is that 2020 is the most investigated election in the history of our country, and that every single review of it has come up there wasn't any interference. And yet the election where there was an investigation and there was proven to be interference, you get Russia, Russia, Russia all the time from the MAGAs and from Trump. Russia, Russia, Russia. They act like if they say Russia, Russia, Russia 3 times, it'll be like the opposite of the, I don't know, whatever it is, the boogeyman, where like you say the name 3 times and it appears. I think if they say Russia 3 times, it'll disappear, just like magically, boom, goes away. Never happened, even though there was like all kinds of evidence that Russia definitely interfered and definitely wanted Trump to win and definitely benefited from Trump winning. But we're worried about 2020. There wasn't anything in 2020. I don't know why he needs. I am not going to carve out my Thursday evening to watch that rambling buffoon ramble like a buffoon. But anyway, we can talk about that if you want to talk about that. ICE continues to murder people on the city streets, and apparently now they're saying that they're going to stop. Doing the whole thing where they stop, moving vehicles or whatever, which is like, that's supposed to be the case in the first place. Like, I'm not an FBI agent, but I know how to read, and so I've gone and I've looked at like federal, FBI policy and other federal agency policy. Technically, the ICE doesn't have any policy on that. I don't think the DHS does, but ICE doesn't, because ICE isn't supposed to be doing traffic stops. Like, ICE doesn't even have the authority to do that. So whether or not, anyway, it gets exhausting. I'm gonna go look through some comments here, and then we can chat about some things. Brett is here. Hi, Brett. I still find it funny that he says the 2020 election was stolen, even though he was the president at the time. Brett, let me show you this. Might be that some people answered. I swear some MAGAs do not understand how the space-time continuum works. All right, so this is a. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen real quick and show you guys this, so you know I'm not making it up. All right. And this is not the first time this has happened. I've run the similar polls a few times because I just think it's so funny. Wait, what? How do I? Oh, here. Okay. So I asked this question on Twitter. Who was president in 2020? 13% of them said Donald Trump. Got 84 votes, so not a lot of votes yet. But 13% say Joe Biden was president in 2020. Like, there's just all rational thought has left the MAGA party. Sorry if you're on the oh, here, maybe, you know what? How do I? Anyway, sorry. If you're on the profile, you can't see the whole thing. And I don't know how to adjust that. So anyway, I just think that's amazing. Isn't that amazing? Like, how do they not know that? How do they not know who was president in 2020? But they always want to blame they want to blame Joe Biden for everything that happened in 2020. They blame Joe Biden for rigging the election when Trump was president. They blame Joe Biden for sending in the FBI agents when Trump was president. You know, like the whole weird thing where they sent in the FBI agents, and how January 6th was just an op by the FBI that was rigged by Joe Biden, even though Donald Trump was president. There's no consistency of thought or rationale to being a MAGA. It's just say whatever blurts out of your mouth, and it must be true. So anyway, that reminds me, I'm working on a game, guys. Kitty gave me this idea a couple of times. She's joked about a MAGA, or like a MAGA bingo. So I'm gonna do this thing where I'm gonna create a game. I'm gonna create a bingo game, except it's gonna be called Trump instead of bingo. So you get like a Trump, and there will be these Trump cards, which I think is kind of funny. But I'm collecting like 100 or so of the most common retorts, like but Biden or TDS. TDS is actually going to be the free space. And I'll put this game on my website. And so then if you want to play along, you can like actually go to the website, open up the game, and then it'll generate a random card for it. Everybody will have a different card. And then you can just play along. And when somebody in the comments section says something like, what about, what is a woman? Then, like you can check off your what is a woman space and see who gets the bingo first. You know how it is. If you repeat a lie often enough times, it just becomes common. He knows his trailer parks well. The cheesy hot. The cheesy shot. Says cancer. I'm sorry. I have ball cancer. Okay. Hi. Hi, Stephanie. Didn't, yeah, that's the same Stephanie. I still find it funny he says the 2020 election was stolen, even though he wasn't president at the time. If anybody controlled anything, it was him. He failed at rigging the elections. That's why he's pissed. I wonder if he actually did try to do something, and that's why he was so confident he was going to win. But like so many people voted for Biden that it even overcame his rigging. Or there's just that. I mean, I honestly do not understand the appeal of Donald Trump at all. I don't understand it at all. I do not, I cannot think of a single positive thing about him. Like I can't. He's a like even the money he's made, he didn't really make. He made it off of renting out his name, which wasn't even his real name. Like there's no Trump family. It's just everything is just charlatan. Everything is just scam. He got look at how he made his money. It's not like he made his money building buildings. He got money putting his name on buildings other people built. Now he acts like he was personally out there hammering nails and, sawing wood and building the buildings by himself. And now he's an expert on building. He doesn't know the difference between a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver. That man is as dumb as a bowl of pudding. You know how it is if you repeat. Okay. Yeah. Already read that one. I have. Oh, sorry. I don't know why it keeps going down. Because you are a sleeping traitor. I'm a sleeping traitor, or he is a sleeping traitor? I mean, he is a traitor, and he sleeps a lot. I don't know about me, but I'm pretty sure I have never done anything treasonous like he has. He tried to overthrow an election. I don't understand why MAGAs like get all defensive about that and pretend like this is something that liberals made up and that the whole January 6th thing wasn't what it was. We watched the thing on TV. Like I can never get it out of my head. The part I feel the most is the terror of that one man as he was getting, like squeezed in the door. And there's like the masses are like crushing on him. And I mean, I can just imagine how horrifying that experience must have been for him. Like he literally, you could tell in his screams, he thought he was going to die in that moment. And that one to me is like the most scary thing that I could imagine. And that happened. That wasn't AI or CGI or whatever. That wasn't some part of some conspiracy theory wrought up by the Democrats. That was a thing that really happened. And the most inspiring thing that I saw was Harry Dunn leading the MAGA insurrectionists away from Congress. He wasn't leading them away from the Democrats, by the way. He was leading them away from the Republican vice president. He was leading them away from all of Congress, Democrat or Republican. Those people that fought the insurrectionists, they weren't Democrats. They weren't liberals. They were police officers. And we don't know what all their what all their politics were up to that point, right? Now there's some we know what their politics are since that point. But you kind of have to understand they have a reason for their perspective. Like Donald Trump nearly had them killed, so there's, I understand why Michael Falcone doesn't like Donald Trump. Michael Falcone was beaten to death. His heart literally stopped. He was dead. He was clinically dead. And they kept beating him until he came back to life. So yeah, if you have somebody beat you to death and then back to life, I understand why maybe you don't like that person. That's not partisan. The old Republican senator that just died. Well, Lindsey Graham was only 71. He wasn't that old. Was it normal to replace him with his sister we didn't vote for? Strikes me as weird. Okay, it's not as weird as you think. There's other cases where people have been, replaced by their spouse, or some, and it's only temporary, right, until the next election. And if I've seen some people like getting worked up about that. That's not that abnormal that the governor would replace them with somebody like that. It's happened before. Usually it's a spouse, but Lindsey Graham, for whatever reasons, chose to keep his relationships private if he had any. And so there's a lot of speculation about why. But I want to just mention a couple of things about this. I don't like the Lady Graham comments, and I don't like, he was a closet homosexual, and that kind of stuff. Whether it's true or not is moot to me. I don't think you even though like you can say, like he had all the anti-gay, positions. And some people speculate he might have been closeted and effeminate. But to me, that's all. Like, I'd be upset if Republicans did it to a Democrat. I get upset if Democrats do it to a Republican. His sexuality is his own choice. If he chooses to keep it private, then he chooses to keep it private. If he has a position against homosexuality, then argue it's his position, not his hypocrisy. Because, we don't know for sure it's hypocrisy. You can suspect, but you don't know for sure. None of the construction money men pound nails foolish. This looks like a text-to-speech thing gone awry, or speech-to-text thing gone awry. I don't know what you're saying, Wash Proc. It's street theater and a setup like Antifa in a costume. What is street theater, Rick? What are you saying is street theater? I don't understand what you're saying. What is the it? If you tell your children to play nice and your child starts a fight, did your child listen to you? No. What is this metaphor supposed to mean? Who is the child here? And who is the parent? Patriot, showing love and pride for your country while seeing it can still be made better for everyone. Nationalists, love it or get out. Yeah. And the nationalists that say love it or get out, we're happy to criticize it when Joe Biden was president. Like, if you want to say get behind your president, he's your president, you should support him no matter what, then that's fine. You can have that opinion. But, if you don't do that, maybe there's an issue. Donald Trump has criticized the last two presidents that weren't him relentlessly. So if you're saying that like you hate America if you criticize the president, then Donald Trump hates America because he criticized the president, right? I mean, he's not like, time doesn't stop and start when Donald Trump is president. Was unaware of the Lindsay sexuality stuff, but good to know. It's not odd to replace temporarily with a family. No, it's not. It's actually more common than you might think. I think it's because I think the thinking is that the people that know them the best are going to be the most faithful to try and do what that person would have done. And so like, and I think there's maybe a bit of a difference between somebody resigning because of a corruption, like with the Democrat in the House, um, and like there's a difference between that and somebody dying. So they always try to replace them with somebody that will be faithful to do what they think that they would have done. And so the people that were closest to them, their family, it's actually not uncommon. Well, a family member is unusual. The governor assignment of the seat is normal. Yeah, but governors have assigned family members before, like spouses and whatnot. This is not unique. Hang on, let me look it up. Oh, hang on, yeah, I don't know how to do that. So, I'm asking it. Was Graham the first time a congressperson was replaced by a spouse or family member? Because I'm pretty sure it happens fairly frequently, but well, not fairly frequently, but it's not uncommon. So Jean Carnahan appointed to the Senate in 2001 after her husband Mel Carnahan died in a plane crash. Mary Bono was elected in a special election after the death of her husband Sonny Bono. Doris Matsui won the special election. So these are special elections. And then Muriel Humphrey was appointed to the seat after the death of her husband, Hubert Humphrey. This is so spouse, or this might be the first time it was a sister, but I think it's, Lindsey Graham didn't have a spouse. So, if he had a spouse, his spouse would have been. This is the closest thing he had to a spouse. And like I said, I don't actually have an issue with it because I think that, to replace somebody with somebody that knows their heart and would be committed to doing the same thing, that's fine. I don't think that's unusual. South Carolina has its, procedures in their constitution, I assume, or in their law. I don't think there's any exclusions on who you can replace them with. Go peacefully. Oh, you're talking about Trump saying go peacefully and then just like totally ignored the fact that they weren't being peaceful. Do you know what a wink is? That was a wink. That wasn't if he really wanted them to go peacefully, he would have like said, I said peacefully, right? He wouldn't have sat there in his dining room rewinding his favorite parts on TV over and over again and enjoying it. He wouldn't have like shut out his own family was begging him to stop it, to say something, anything to stop it, and he refused to do so. So if he really meant it while he was saying go peacefully, and I've never had anybody, not one person that sits there and brings up the peacefully has ever even tried to explain why he watched it all happen without stopping it if he really wanted it peacefully. Maybe the thing is he wanted it to happen and the peacefully was just thrown in there as cover. Ever think of that? Because that's what, you ever heard the expression actions speak louder than words? Well, so does the lack of action. Everyone heard him say go peacefully. Yes, everyone heard him say go peacefully. And then everyone watched while it happened, including him. And he didn't do anything about it. Trump has pardoned over 70 people convicted of fraud, relieving almost $2 billion in victim repayment. Yeah, that's one of the things that gets lost in all of this stuff while he's making all the money. off of all these pardons when she's selling. Let's not, equivocate here. I'm not suggesting he's selling pardons. I am stating that he is selling pardons. So don't worry if I'm, you don't have to guess if that's what I mean. That is what I mean. He is literally selling pardons to convicted fraudsters, to convicted drug traffickers and cartel leaders and money launderers for the drug traffickers and cartel leaders and human traffickers. He is pardoning the most vile people that have led to the deaths of all these, people that OD'd that you're all worried about. When you're bombing fishing boats out in the middle of the ocean, those people that were saying this was like an act of self-defense, he's actually pardoning the people that ran the cartels and laundered money for the cartels. But but then there's also like WTF over 2. I like that name. Like he brings out, or she or they bring out, the fraudsters that he's pardoning. They're supposed to pay the people that they committed fraud against, right? But not anymore. They get pardoned. That judgment goes away. So now, they got scammed out of their life savings and they're supposed to get it back. They don't get their life savings back now. Trump is a stain on my wonderful country. The first person to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power between leaders. Just because guardrails held doesn't mean it's okay. It happened. And now it looks like there is a full-on assault on those guardrails. He's replaced everyone with the DOJ that would stop him. Like in 2020, he tried to go further, and his DOJ said, if you do that, we're walking out. And now he's got nothing but lemmings, sheep, and sycophants surrounding him. Anybody that would disagree is gone. Anybody that would agree with objective reality is gone. Whatever Trump says is what is real to them. And so now he's got this speech announced tomorrow, this ridiculous speech, which I will make sure to avoid, where he's going to like prove, I guess, that somehow he was treated unfairly in the 2020 election, even though he was president at the time. I can never figure out how it is that Joe Biden could craft such an ingenious plan to steal the election without detection after all of these investigations and after everything, and yet like be too incompetent to do anything about running the country. And how he can do all of this stuff from his basement and yet not be able to actually run an election from his basement. And how he can, like the whole thing is, everything about MAGA is like one thought does not have to have anything at all to do with the next thought. They're about as consistent as Donald Trump's bowels. It's just a constant stream of, fermented poop coming out of all of them. There's no logical thought. Oh, he said peacefully, but okay. You're saying it wasn't peaceful then, right? But you always hear him say it was a peaceful protest. If he said peacefully, why weren't they peaceful? Why didn't he stop them when they weren't? When do you get to work today? Because Trumpy speaks in reality. Okay. What reality? Trump does not speak from a place of reality. He doesn't. There is no republic, Islamic Republic of Japan, right? There weren't airports during the revolution. And the 2020 election was not stolen. Okay. One word describes these people, criminals. Which people do you mean? The like Donald Trump and his cabinet, the people he pardoned, or the people that oppose Donald Trump and his cabinet? I agree that Donald Trump and his cabinet are criminals and that they pardon criminals. What time do you get? Yeah. It wasn't a gene. This is, do you know what I mean? Anyway, this is what I'm like. This is what I mean. Like with MAGAs, they try to make conversations about the person that's criticizing Trump and not Trump. It wasn't genius. They scammed the voting machines. No, they didn't scam the voting machines. And genius is spelled with an N. They didn't scam. What do you mean they scammed the voting? How do you scam a voting machine? You go up to the voting machine and say, "Hey, got a deal for you." Like, how do you scam a voting machine? All right. Now, here, do you mean that they hacked the voting machines? Guess what? Fox News said that, and then they got sued, and they settled for like almost $1 trillion or something. Or how much was it? Almost $1 billion or almost $1 trillion? How much did Fox? Let me ask. So the 780, so almost $1 billion, $787.5 million for their allegations that the Dominion voting machines were scammed. And you don't know that? Do you like honestly not know that? Are you that far removed from anything that's not inside your bubble? Like, you do know that, right? You do know that even like Arizona tried to do this investigation where they hired a the election was stolen group to come in and prove it was stolen. And they ended up proving that Biden actually won by more votes than Arizona initially thought. How do you not know these things? I would think that as vested in this as you seem to be, that you would know that, but you don't know any more about that than you do about how to spell the word genius. Oh, Biden didn't steal the election. It was the Democrats that wanted him as a placeholder. Which Democrats? How did they do it? Why haven't they been caught? How were they able to do it in states where there was Republican state governments with Donald Trump being the president, a Republican in charge of election security, a Republican in charge of the FBI, a Republican in charge of the CIA? Republicans were in charge of everything. And they were all appointed by Donald Trump. So why didn't the Democrats then run whatever genius came up with this mastermind plan that you can't even outline because it was so undetectable and so genius? No, I'm not. I'm in my own living room. But Mom's basement, that I think maybe Mom's basement is going to have to go on the MAGA bingo card. So I'm doing this thing. It's going to be called MAGA Tourette's bingo, but it's actually going to be like a Trump card. I'm going to put it on my website, and you can go on there and you'll get a randomly generated bingo card. And when these MAGAs come on and say stupid things like, do you have a job? I think "do you have a job" is going to go on there too. But some people actually believe this tribe. They do. And it's like they don't actually even try to consider any reality at all. Actually, I made dinner, and I do. My mom is dead. She's been cremated. She was dead about 15 years ago. Actually, more like 20 years ago now. And I make my own food, thank you. I think most Americans know the election was fair. It's that MAGA cult that can't believe it wasn't. I think deep down, they know Donald Trump lies. Like they know. But they're just committed to the bit by now. And they have to say that. But I think if you could get Wonder Woman's lasso of truth and wrap it around them and say who won the 2020 election, they would say Joe Biden won. Like to think that, like this idea that somehow, like what the Chavez, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he came out with the whole Chavez thing on Thursday and said that somehow like a dead person managed to rig the election. Two wings of the same bird. This is like a dumb talking point. They are not two wings of the dead bird. I mean, that's like, no, or the same bird. They're not. The idea that Republicans and Democrats are basically the same is just like, it's lazy and it's ignorant. No, it's not. It's not. It's just not. Republicans think that women don't have a right to choose their own health care. Women do. That's why we fight about it. There are so many, like, the only way you can think that is to, like, really, literally shove your head up your own butt and inhale. Make America great again. How? How is he making America great again? What is better about America? And I guarantee you, if you answer it all, it'll be something like, the border's closed. So that doesn't make America great again. It doesn't. It's having a negative impact on America. And it's not really closed. He just denied the right to asylum to people that were getting persecuted in their own countries and are trying to flee. Unless, of course, they weren't really getting persecuted and they just happen to be white farmers that live in South Africa. In which case, he gives them asylum, but nobody else. When the only people that can declare asylum anymore are white, you really have to reevaluate whether the man is a racist. 780 million, right? Thank you. Got a real statement or just rally slop? Proved they were cheating. Dominion proved they were cheating. Dominion did not prove they were cheating. That's not even. Dominion is the one that was being accused of doing the cheating. Imagine claiming the election was stolen without proof and half the country believe you. Yeah, Cyber Ninjas in Arizona. That's the name of the group. Thank you. They came in and they did all of this insane stuff and they tried as hard as they could. And they ended up just finding Biden actually won by more. Like the end result, and you know, like a lot of their methods and stuff were silly. And I don't even know if their final result was actually more accurate than the initial results. And that's just the one state. It's like, it's just, you just have to like be more convinced that you can't be wrong than the other person can be right. You can't question your own thought process at a certain point. It's not even about being right or wrong. It's about being able to consider the possibility that something in the world is not the way that you thought it was. And MAGAs just don't have that ability to like question their own views. Trump is desperate. He knows what is coming in November. He does. And he knows what's going to happen. And so does Mike Johnson. And so does everybody else. They're all like, oh, he's just going to get, impeached again. No crap. Of course he's going to get impeached again. He should have been convicted the first 2 times. Now he's out there selling pardons to drug dealers. That's an impeachable offense. I'm sorry if that offends you, but that's true. What about Hunter Biden? Well, what about him? This guy is just stupid, and yet you can't actually refute what I'm saying. So if I'm stupid and you can't refute what I'm saying, what does that make you? I have a hard time figuring out if MAGA is that gullible and stupid or just bleeping with us. I think that there's the performative thing, right? Like where they're like, on the one hand, they're like, I know I'm wrong, or they're I'm not wrong. I can't be wrong. But I can't believe that anybody that actually watched what happened on January 6th could say that was peaceful. I don't think anybody could be truly dumb enough to believe that the FBI instigated it. When the FBI was under Trump. Trump was president in 2020. I know that's hard for you to believe sometimes, MAGAs. But Trump was president. Trump was president when we had all the shutdowns. I'm not actually the one struggling trying to figure this out, Rex. I just can't figure out how, like MAGAs operate. But that I understand how elections work. I understand why it's, whether you're talking about the 2020 election or the 2024 election. I have a lot of Democrats that have said that they think the 24 election was stolen by Elon Musk. But I've looked into the details, and it is basically impossible to steal an election and not get caught. It's just the logistics of doing so would be impossible. And that's the one thing that anybody that has ever talked about how the election was stolen have not been able to address the logistics of it. Here's what, like, in order for it to happen, there's a lot of people that will bring up things like, okay, they hacked this election machine and it wasn't that hard. But here's the thing, that election, like the ballot machines or whatever, they're air gapped. They're not connected to the internet in any way. So in order to manipulate the election results and change the voting, you'd have to hack the machine, but it would require hacking like tens of thousands of machines and like tens of thousands of districts in many different states. You'd have to like be able to learn how to hack each different machine. You have people inside there that are monitoring the elections from both parties that you'd have to somehow evade there. And then like if you look at it, it's like about 600 people vote per precinct. And you couldn't overturn just the whole precinct, right? You'd have to overturn like a small enough number of votes that it doesn't look obvious. And then you've got a lot of these places where, whether they have paper ballots or not, a lot of them have printout ballots. So like in Texas, I vote on a machine, then I print it out and I can look at my vote and see, yep, that's right. And then I drop it into this box. And then if there's a recount, they can always go to those printouts and count those. And they even have a person that when you're walking out reminds you to go put your vote in the box, and they watch you put it in the box. So you can't stuff that either. And so you would have to have like thousands and thousands of people that know how to hack the machine without getting caught. They'd have to be able to, like get past the election workers, or maybe the election workers are in on it, but then you've got thousands and thousands of more. It would cost immense amounts of money. There's just no way to do that because they're air gapped. You can't just go, and you'd have to like what have some sort of USB stick you stick in there, and you'd have to know where to stick it, and it'd have to like the logistics of doing it are just too improbable. Well, you know some stuff. I do know some stuff. I don't know if that's meant to be sarcastic or not. The best thing that could happen in November is win in a huge way, a blue tsunami. I call it a blue nami. That's what we need is a blue nami. That's the other thing that always cracks me up about this whole thing though, is like, why would you hack the election to steal the president and not the Republicans in the Senate and the House that are on that same ballot? Like you only that part of the ballot was rigged. It's just so silly. It doesn't make any logical sense at all. But neither does being a MAGA. Trump needs to be removed now. Killing babies is not healthcare. Nobody wants to kill babies. Babies are born by definition. That's what the word means. Before it gets worse. I mean, like, nah, I'm not going to get distracted. Before it gets worse. There was proof. No, there was not proof. There was no proof. There is zero proof, which is why you can't tell me what the proof is. Just stroke. I mean, I'm just like, man, I can't be the only person on the catch-up side here. The border was never really an issue, or they would have voted on the Republican-led Langford immigration bill. But Trump needed the border to fear race bait the country. There is so much dogma around the immigration issues. And I will say there are immigration issues. Our immigration laws are broken. And they need to be changed. But you can never have a discussion with the MAGA on actual immigration. They don't want to discuss it. A lot of the issues, not all of them, but a lot of the actual issues on immigration, including border security, were addressed in this bill. So here's what there's a couple of things that were happening, just for those who actually are interested in the reality. Number one, there was we were under the COVID restrictions. Okay. And under the COVID restrictions, we said nobody can come into the country because COVID, right? And Joe Biden continued that. I disagreed with Joe Biden continuing it because we were the worst country on earth when it came to COVID. But we're worried that the immigrants are going to bring it in, right? And so, like, oh no, it's like saying you can't pour water in the ocean or else it'll get wet. But anyway, the because we were under that kind of restriction, there was like a difference in how we handled apprehensions. And so let's say that Juan comes over here to illegally, and he like to request asylum or whatever, or he comes over here illegally, and then rather than process him and send him back, we just send him back. Then Juan comes over the next day and we send him back. And then he comes over the next day and we send him back. And we just do this several times. All right. So Juan tries to come over here 25 times and he gets sent back 25 times. Juan is not over here at all. He's not working. He's not murdering people in Texas or something. He's still in Mexico. But they'll use these encounters numbers and they'll like make it look like Juan was over here 25 times. That's why anytime you see the encounters numbers as proof that the borders were open, it's stupid because it's not 25, that is not the number of unique people that cross. And the other thing is, they're encounters. The very fact they were encountered is evidence that the borders aren't open. If the borders were wide open, encounters would be zero because there's nobody there to encounter them, right? We still had border security. There was still like a border patrol. There was still, if you came over from Mexico, you still had to stop and go through the border patrol, and they looked at your car and all of that kind of stuff, and they checked your IDs. So this idea that the borders were open is just a nonsensical statement. So why were there were more people that came over the border and entered the country under Joe Biden. This is true. And there's a couple of reasons for that. There's the people that came over and declared asylum. Okay. And the reason we had more people declaring asylum under Joe Biden than under Donald Trump is that Joe Biden actually followed the laws on asylum and Donald Trump didn't. Joe Biden enforced the law while Donald Trump broke the law. The law says that if you're in this country, whether it's legal or not, you can, it says irregardless of immigrant status, right? Or irregardless, it says regardless of immigrant status. Irregardless is not a word. And I know like people that are probably angry that I accidentally said irregardless. I don't know where that came from. I apologize. But regardless of immigrant status, you can request asylum. Literally the only requirement to request asylum is that you be in this country. So that's one of the reasons, is that Joe Biden actually let people request asylum. Donald Trump just said, no, you can't do that. You have to go wait in Mexico. And then in Mexico, they'd sit there and they'd get murdered and raped and killed and robbed and all kinds of stuff. There was more than 50% of the people that were forced to remain in Mexico were victims of violent crimes, and only about 3% of those crimes were solved. So some people actually found that was inhumane. Like to force people to get murdered because they were afraid of getting murdered and then being accused of being murderers. So that's one reason that people came over. And then the other reason that people came over is that their cartels were actually involved in a way that you might not realize. Because you had this bottleneck of people waiting for asylum. The cartels would force them to like wait, and then the cartels would regulate from their side who came over when. All right. And so they'd send over a whole bunch of people. And then the border security that was supposed to be patrolling the border would have to come over and help process all these asylum claims. And then while that was happening, the cartel members would sneak over. That's why the gotaways were up, because the asylum claim, because they were rigging the system, but it was Donald Trump's policies that made it riggable. And like people don't actually bother learning about why things happen. They just like to shout numbers without understanding why they are the way they are or what they mean. So there were more gotaways, but there's a reason there were more gotaways. And there were more asylum cases, but that's not a bad thing. That means Joe Biden was following the law while Donald Trump doesn't. What neither of those things mean is that the borders were open. Was rewatching the old Obama and McCain debate, and Trump sounds just like them. No, he doesn't. Like, that's where he got his playbook. No, it's not. There are plenty of MAGA that say January 6th was peaceful. And it wasn't. It wasn't. Ask the people. Ask the man who lost his eye. Ask the man who was sprayed with bear spray. Ask the man. Oh, wait, you can't because he's dead now. Kennedy is better than Donald. You get no argument from me there. Biden and Senate Republicans put the border bill forward to the House. It was Trump and Mike that killed the border bill. And they had an agreement. This was a bipartisan agreement, or a bipartisan bill that they worked with together. And so, going back to what I was just talking about with the reasons that there was immigration was up. That bill actually was addressing some of those reasons. It was trying to regulate the number of asylum claims that could be processed in a day. It tried, but by law, not just by edict of the king. And it was providing more money for border patrol so that when they sent a bunch of people over and then tried to sneak over the cartels, then they have more border patrol agents to take care of that. They tried to increase the number of asylum officers so we don't have the asylum backlog. All of these things were actually really designed to address the problem, and it was bipartisan. It was bipartisan until Trump got involved, and then Republicans became partisan and said bye to the bill. Trump was the person that called these people to DC in the first place. Yes, be there, will be wild. And he spent months declaring, even before the election, he was declaring it was going to be stolen. Todd Blanche is facing bar. Yes, Todd Blanche. This is like, I think you have to really process this. Thanks for bringing this up, Brett. Todd Blanche is, I think he's already been disbarred in New York, and he might get disbarred again in DC. Can you imagine the attorney general not being able to practice law in the largest city or the capital city? And think about this. Like, we tell lawyer jokes all the time, right? Because generally speaking, we don't think of lawyers as having the most, like the highest moral fiber. How corrupt do you have to be to have lawyers say, that's a bridge too far? Like, that's pretty corrupt. There's a video of the Proud Boys breaking the window to the Capitol with a riot shield and breaching the Capitol. There's all kinds of videos of just like violence. They're clamoring over like it's almost like that Brad Pitt movie about the zombies, where they're like, the zombies are climbing over the wall. That's what they look like, climbing up the sides of the Capitol building. Congress sold Americans for decades to Mexican cartel trafficking drugs into America. We are able. Yeah, I don't know what all that nonsense is. They had a gallows made for Pence, but they were not violent. Okay, now technically that gallows just wouldn't have been able to hang Mike Pence on there. It wasn't like to scale. It was smaller, and the pictures make it look like it was bigger. Like, you could not have hung Mike Pence on that. But they did run in there screaming, hang Mike Pence, in a massive, angry, violent mob. So I think it's reasonable to suspect that if they had gotten their hands on Mike Pence would be talking to Lindsey Graham right now. Denny, you're saying Congress are the coyotes bringing people across. I'm not even going to entertain that kind of wackiness. Do you think Trump is going to say Maduro fixed the 2020 election? Oh, goodness. I hadn't thought about that. Probably. I don't know what he's going to say. Yeah, I think even his own speechwriters don't know what he's going to say. WTF over 2 says, I like the stream, and I like you too. And if this is your first time, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe so we can get the algorithm up. Especially if you agree with me, so that we can kind of like balance things out with the MAGAs. Trump lost the 2020 election. It's like saying, if I drop something, it will fall to the ground. Like, Trump lost the 2020 election. It should not be a controversial statement. And it's funny, like every single person that they go to confirm for anything, nobody in the Trump administration will say that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. They'll say things like, well, Joe Biden was declared the winner. They'll talk around it. They can't admit that Joe Biden won. 2020 was completely different than any other election. Well, yeah, because there was a massive pandemic going on. It was the first election that anybody had where you could literally die because you voted. I got invitations for voting via mail. Then I could simply go on Sunday, just a 5-minute walk, or order mail-in ballot. Voting is done on paper. Just makes me cross. I get into... If people can vote by mail, people can vote in person. I don't understand why people think that how you vote makes a difference. You put in a ballot, and that's it. Voting by mail is actually more secure than voting in person. And voting in person is extremely secure. Making... I've been thinking about I like the algae. They did make them. I've been thinking about like making America gaudy again with all these gaudy things. Did you see the banners on the FDA with Trump and Washington's face on it? And it's just like, that looks like something straight out of Nazi Germany. I'm sorry. They're like the big banners, like just totally something. Like, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a fascist thing to do. I'm just saying that's something that fascists would do. You know, like the whole thing, like Donald Trump is the greatest ever kind of nonsense bullshit. So I accidentally swore. He basically admitted the election rigging is a lie during the World Cup. I mean, he knows it's not. He knows it's not rigged. Donald Trump is so dumb he couldn't beat a blind chicken at checkers. With Trump, you will never need to vote again. That's right. We never need to vote again, and we may never have a chance. Because the state control of the votes was caught cheating in battleground state and fixed elector, going to Trump, not Biden. It was Mike Pence followed the Constitution. Trump wanted to cheat. I don't know what you mean. There has been no state that has rigged any election in 2020 or 2024. Trump is one step away from wandering the White House halls in an open house coat with no underwear, babbling Bigfoot started the California wildfires and cloning dragons. Which side of one step away from that is he on? I wouldn't be surprised if he's already doing it. I had a friend that worked at the Onion for a while, and he was, you know, I asked him jokingly, I was like, how often did you guys, this was like while Biden was president, I asked him, how often did you guys have to like delete articles under Trump because they became true? And he said, way too often. Like they literally had to delete articles that were parody that became true. So, and now this is even like I long for the stability of Trump's first term nowadays. Interesting, no mention of the 84 fake electors. Trump allies tried to change elections. Trump pardoned them. Yes, that is a very astute point. That, I mean, it's like, but I don't think he's going to talk. He's going to, and that the whole Green Bay sweep. I've never heard MAGA address that. I don't know if they don't know about it. Like, they don't know that this whole thing was a plan. Like the fake electorates, the forged certificates, the run up to it. You know that Fox News wasn't putting the January 6th hearings on TV, so they never heard any of that. But yes, the entire thing was the insurrection. They say January 6th wasn't an insurrection, it was a peaceful protest. The insurrection was not just what happened on January 6th. The entire plan, as laid out very clearly by what's his name? The guy that can't talk without moving his hands. Nadler, or no, not Nadler. I forget which one. They all kind of run together. Anyway, he was on the Ari Melbert show, and he just revealed the whole thing. And he ended up going to prison because he wouldn't testify to Congress what he said before. But here was the whole plan. The plan was that first Trump would get everybody excited and ginned up that the election was stolen, and invite them to come out to this speech on January 6th. And then they would go and they would have, like these alternate electors. Although even in the proposal, they called it fake electors. So they have these alternate electors, fake electors, from each of the states. And if you look at the different certificates that they brought, they were like almost identical. So you know that these things were choreographed together, right? These weren't, all these different states independently came up with the idea. And the states didn't either. It's just wackos in those states. None of those people had any connection to anyone in the government. They just got together, ran a piece of paper through a printer, signed it, and declared that made them the official, electors. So then they all, walked over to, went to go to DC to pretend like they were the real electors. Then you had a bunch of traitors in Congress that decided they were going to advocate for those fake electors, even though they were not. Like, there was a part of the 14th Amendment that talks about when there's confusion over who the electors are, then Congress decides. Okay? And this is what the whole theory was. We create confusion over who really the electors are, then we can have Congress decide. And we'll get to that in a minute. But what happened after the Civil War is you had states where the governor would say one thing and the state legislation would say another. And so you had two different people sent by the states to be the electors, right? Just different parts of the government. The state legislature didn't send these lunatics. All right, they weren't any connection at all to any of the government, but they just went there claiming they were. And then you'd had people like Ted Cruz sit there and pretend like they had some kind of legitimacy. And the whole idea was to pretend that there was all this confusion in who the election was, or in who really won the election. And so, like, we have to honor the people and their interest in having like a real election result. And so then we would use the 14th Amendment to go, is it the 14th? 12th? Anyway, whichever amendment it is. They would go and they would determine the way that sets out when there's this confusion. The idea is that each state gets a vote. And then the vote by each state is based on the majority of combined representatives and senators in those states. And by that measure, there's more Republican states than Democratic states. So it has nothing at all to do with who won the election or not. It was a way to steal the election. And Ted Cruz is a traitor. And every single Republican, from Josh Hawley to whoever that signed on to this deal, was telling 81 million Americans who voted for Joe Biden that their votes don't count. And then they're using election integrity as a slogan when they have no integrity on elections. But then on January 6th, the idea was just to stop the count. It was not to try and overthrow the government. It was to stop the count so that the elected Republicans and representatives could overthrow the election on behalf of Donald Trump. And that's what Mike Pence was supposed to acknowledge, that these votes are in dispute. That was the whole thing that Mike Pence was supposed to do. So it was all a big plan. It wasn't just like a bunch of people got pissed off and stormed the Capitol. That's why Donald Trump didn't want to stop them, because they were supposed to be stopping the procedure from happening. And I was mentioning yesterday, Lindsey Graham was initially one of those people, but then after that, if you watch the speech he gave, he's like, yeah, I'm out. He said, I'm out. And that kind of stopped. That's when all of that nonsense got put to an end. Once Lindsey Graham said, I'm out, all of that nonsense was over. So that's the insurrection. The insurrection was not, beating Michael Falcone to death and back to life. That was just an aspect of it. I say it's not the insurrection was not the spear. It was just the point of the spear. Only reason borders aren't fully closed is for the drug trade. Yeah. I'm sorry. I just don't engage with nonsense. Ron Johnson had the fake electors and said he had no idea what was in the yellow envelope. They were cheating Americans. Now gerrymander. Sometimes speech to text does fun things. Gerrymandering. I always thought it would be fun to have a guy named gerrymandering. MAGA says, but yes, Ron Johnson was one of the people that was complicit with this whole thing. MAGA says tariffs is because MAGA says tariffs is because of fentanyl, but MAGA don't care about lives, just winning. They vote themselves to pay more for products America don't and never will make. Right. Oh yeah, the whole fentanyl thing is like, they don't give a crap about fentanyl. If they gave a crap about fentanyl, why are they all excited about why aren't they? The guy from Binance, Chinese guy, can't show or something like that, was the CEO of Binance, which was a crypto company. And then he used his crypto company to launder money for drug cartels that, and to launder the money for the fentanyl that came from China. And Trump pardoned him. If they cared about fentanyl, why aren't they upset about that? And you know what? Donald Trump's currency, his little crypto scheme, yeah, thanks to the pardon from the crypto guy that helped him make his own crypto. Danny, in the immortal words of Dr. Evil, right, exactly. And didn't have to be tested, but you did go to work. I don't know what. In the last 43 years, they found around 100 immigrants voting into America's elections. 43 years, yes. I actually did this math, and I figured out that your chances of standing behind an immigrant that's voting illegally are greater, or your chances of getting hit by a shark are greater than standing behind an immigrant that's voting illegally. And your chances of getting struck by lightning are greater than standing behind an immigrant that is voting illegally. And your chances of getting hit by lightning while you're being eaten by a shark are roughly the same as standing behind an immigrant who is voting illegally. So that's how rare it is. If you're worried about immigrants voting, you should be worried about getting struck by lightning while being eaten by a shark. Again, yeah. ICE is horrific. How many people have they killed that we don't know about? That's a good question. They say they're gonna, stop doing the traffic things, and it's still you still got people, even with the video evidence. It's like it's just clear this guy was never a danger to anybody. They weren't even serving the right person. They weren't even serving the right person. Let's say you have never committed a crime. You're not here illegally. You're not doing anything wrong. And all of a sudden, these unmarked, these cars, I won't even say unmarked because unmarked is not a thing if you don't know it's unmarked. It's just a car. These people in this car start trying to ram you on the side of the road, and ram you off and, push you over. What are you going to do? You're going to try to get away? I'd be inclined to say, hey, I got to get away. These people are trying to assault me. And so that's what the guy did. The guy didn't do anything illegal. He wasn't even the right person. They were serving a warrant on the wrong, like he was not supposed to be served at all. He never did anything illegal except try to get, I shouldn't say, he tried to get away. He didn't do anything illegal, period. He tried to get away from people that were trying to, kidnap him as far as he knew. Or rob him or whatever. He just, tried to evade people attacking him. Trump is going to declare Maduro stole the 2020 election after he kidnapped him. Yeah, I'm sure. I wonder if they've gotten a confession out of him yet. Trump is a scumbag, pedophile piece of garbage. And that's about the nicest thing you can say about him. Free the Epstein files. America #1 cheerleader in immigrants coming to America. Southern border was and still is Donald Dealmaker Trump. He campaigned for years in American open border. Voting 100 immigrants voting illegally. Wowee, in 45 years. You say that means Biden, Obama, Clinton, Ford, they were all elected unfairly. No, nobody's saying that. Do you first of all, who said that they voted in any of those elections? Secondly, what fornication are you talking about? Ford didn't ever win an election. What are you talking about? Ford was president more than 45 years ago. And he was appointed president. He wasn't even elected vice president. Spiro Agnew was. I get the feeling you don't read a lot, David. Republicans voted down Biden's anti-price gouging bill 3 times. Yes, because that was communism. But somehow, the whole state-run gas stations isn't. The governor of Michigan said men can use the girls' bathroom. No, the governor of Michigan said that transgender people can use the bathroom of their of their identity. He did not, idiot. I don't know what he didn't do, and anyway, I don't know what you're talking about. So now we're just to MAGA. I got to get that MAGA Tourette's video card or bingo card done. I should actually that one should just go on there. It's just like MAGA. Like I'm just gonna scream away like the facts. They're pummeling my brain. If I say MAGA, I might be able to deflect them. MAGA, 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 MAGA. It's like a cry for help. Like it's some sort of defense mechanism. Are you a Democrat or a Republican? I'd say I'm more Democrat than Republican. I'm definitely not a Republican. I am a Democrat by necessity, not by choice. If there were, I'm probably somewhere between, ideologically, somewhere between DSA and Democrat. Watching Trump have each executive order explained, then handed to him, compared to Biden personally reading and explaining it, each is such a night and day difference. That's right. I say that Donald Trump is the auto pen. Like, he just sits there and it's like you can almost see the drool, coming out of his mouth, and he's just there to perform. He has no idea at all what he's signing. Anybody can question any election. Nobody's saying you can't question it. Nobody, no, I'm not saying anybody should get arrested, but somebody asking questions might want to know what the answer to that question is. Nobody is saying he should be arrested for asking questions. He should be arrested for starting a riot and for trying to steal the election. That's what he should be arrested for. Oh, goodness gracious, Robert. I'm not going to engage on that nonsense. Okay. 1 minute timeout. Slow your pacing down or come up with real stuff, please. Yeah, I just skimmed past all that nonsense from Robert. As soon as I saw Plandemic, what an idiot. This is a live stream. Nobody's going to read a novel. Nader. Yeah, Nader. Thanks to Nader, we have the Homeland Security Act. We have ICE. We have everything that Nader allegedly was against, because some liberals can't learn that chess is the game we're playing. We have, think how, like, without Nader, we don't have Alito or Roberts on the Supreme Court. Just that right there. That's the whole ball game. You need guns for an insurrection. No, you don't. Anything else? And by the way, there were guns there, but you don't need guns for an insurrection. You don't. There's no law. There's no law of insurrection must have guns. That's not true. That's one of the dumbest talking points. No, you don't need guns for an insurrection, Jeff. Anything else? Working so hard to conserve your constitutional government. I don't. Vote Republican, pay your taxes, always pay your taxes. Scump is a pedo doing everything to stay out of pedo prison. He'll instigate civil war in World War III and martial law, and no voting will be the norm. I'm really curious. I love it when people talk about, Ukraine hasn't had an election since, Ukraine's constitution says they can't have an election while they're at war. And it's not like Ukraine chose to go to war. Or that Zelensky was the one that started it. The Democratic Party is a terrorist organization. Thank God for Trump and ICE. The guy that, is out cheering on people, American citizens, being murdered on the street because they don't agree with his politics, is calling the other side, the side that is getting murdered, terrorists. Don't listen to the guy. He's just spewing propaganda, says the guy that's spewing propaganda. All right. The ICE agents couldn't find the actual person, so they said, hey, there's a brown guy. Let's do it. David, he didn't FAFO. He didn't FA. He just FO'd. He didn't do anything at all illegal. He was here legally. He was working here legally. He was 100% did not ever break a law that we know of. So what do you mean FAFO? What are you going to do if a bunch of strangers come up to you and just start trying to ram your car off the road? What are you going to do? Give him your wallet? Give him your child? He had his... Anyway, you're a terrible person, David. You're terrible. You're a bad person. Be better. Now we got a STFU because, oh my God, give it up. We should remain ice to nice. No, we should rename ice to lice. So you're admitting he was trying to evade, or no, he was trying to evade people that were trying to capture him. There was no arrest that he was trying to evade. He had no idea who they were. You admit that, like, and they wonder why we call them fascist. Biden most definitely was fraudulent. No, he was not fraudulent. Orange, Jesus loves you. Elaborate more on Trump accepting the $400 million jet from Qatar, a Muslim Islamic country. Yeah, that is actually something I hadn't thought about before. But can you imagine if Obama had gotten a $400 million airplane from Qatar? Do you think maybe that Fox News might cover that one a little bit differently? Might have a little bit more to say about that whole Muslim angle? So here's what I have to say about that. It is an outright violation of the Emoluments Clause, and they can sit there and try and, well, it was actually a gift to the White House, not to the president. Okay, then why isn't it, or to the president, not to Trump? Right there, it's a gift to the office, not the person. Is their justification, which is nonsense, because it's not staying with the president after Trump leaves. It's going to the Trump Presidential Library. The only one who will ever fly on it is Donald Trump. So yeah, it was a gift to Donald Trump. This is just a guy bloviating his personal. Say, yeah, okay. I think, yeah, my personal preference is reality. I think to steal the election, that's a naughty thing to do. Yeah. Who did that? Who tried to do that? Can I ask you a voter ID question? Sure. Go ahead. Just LOL. Trump is stupid. Nobody was charged for insurrection. Well, that's a dumb thing to say. There's no actual law about insurrection. Nobody was charged for rigging the 2020 election. What's your point? That's a red herring and deflection. You're right. You are deflecting. MAGA defines propaganda as fraudulent information they refuse to accept. Factual information like nobody was charged for, yeah. I mean, that's such a, like, first of all, people were charged with insurrection. There's a federal crime I'm looking at of rebellion or insurrection, USC 2383, which nobody was charged for. However, many people were charged with, and some convicted of, other various serious crimes: seditious conspiracy, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an official proceeding, assaulting federal officers, civil disorder, various firearms, trespassing, and property claims. But seditious conspiracy, you want to sit there and like say, oh, this is like saying, oh, he didn't rape her, he just sexually assaulted her. But he pardoned people who were charged with sedition. Goodness gracious. Semantic bullshit. We did charge them with things, and we convicted them of them. Or not we, the Justice Department did. And then Donald Trump pardoned them. Like, don't sit there and say, well, if you have a problem, then get the laws passed. The laws were passed. They broke the laws. and they're in prison. And then Donald Trump pardoned them. Stop being an idiot. I know that it's your number one goal in life is to wake up each morning and say, today I can be stupider than yesterday. And I'm going to find a live stream that I can go on and I can say something really, really incredibly stupid. And then you do it. And then the next day you manage to get even stupider. But dude, there is a better choice. Not being stupid. Try it out. Trying to get away from people that are trying to end you is not breaking the law. It's trying to stay alive and not be. And it's so weird. Like they've got like this. On the one hand, there is this guy that just didn't want to be murdered by people that weren't even identifying themselves as law enforcement. And they're not law enforcement, by the way. ICE is not law enforcement. So you got somebody that's just trying to not get murdered by law enforcement. And he FA'd and FO'd. But the guys who were sitting there trying to murder the vice president of the United States, they were just there peacefully because Donald Trump told them peacefully. Like, come on. Have an honest conversation, at least with yourself. If you can't have one with me, have one with you. Should Trump be embarrassed that the Democrats stole the 2020 election while he was in charge and stole it in the GOP? I have no idea how they reconcile this kind of nonsense. So I scanned your chat history from day one on this channel. You're not playing that game no more. Yeah. I looked it up afterwards. I stand corrected on that. And nobody was charged with it. But well, you can see that they were charged with seditious conspiracy. I don't know what. Okay, here. So the short answer is that prosecutors apparently concluded that they had stronger, more established charges. The federal and the insurrection statute is extremely rare. The federal insurrection law has almost no modern case law. Prosecutors generally avoid being the first to add to an old ambiguous statement in a high-profile case if there are clear alternatives. So that, yeah, all right. So that's just a legal decision in terms of prosecuting and stuff like that. It's not like they didn't do it, or that they didn't try to overthrow the country, or that they weren't there to try and prevent the election from being processed. I mean, it was literally called a stop the steal. Like you're all caught up in the if you want to just say that it was a seditious conspiracy that Donald Trump argued in, well, or was involved in, would you accept that? If you're like, well, they didn't charge him with this, but people were convicted of that. The left is the trash of America. Yeah, see, the trash of America. They don't care about the fellow Americans. When you just called half of America trash, and then you said that half is trash because they don't care about you. Do you realize the double standard you're applying there? Everybody that doesn't agree with you is trash because they don't care about you. You know what? When Joe Biden got his infrastructure bill passed, and more of it was going to red states than blue states, you know what he said? He said, they're Americans too. So you can sit on they don't care about America. Joe Biden cares more about you as somebody that voted against him than Donald Trump does for somebody that voted for him. Joe Biden cares more about you than Donald Trump does. You know what Donald Trump said? He said that he loves the inflation. He doesn't care about affordability. He doesn't care about your life. He doesn't care about you. All he cares about is how much money he's got coming in while he's in the White House. I really should just let these stupid comments stay, just so they can see how dumb they are. But you know what? I don't think they're capable. There's no reflection at all. This is actually the reflection pool is a great example of them. When they look in it, they see, like they should see all the scum. That should be what they're reflecting on. Instead, they just pretend it's pretty. If a restaurant says they have free delivery but give you 10% off for picking up your food, Is it really 10% for delivery? I have, I don't know. Um, in a number of years from now, when Trump is finally out of office and MAGA has gone the way of the moral majority, it will finally be nice to have elections that aren't claimed to be rigged. It's not. This is not making America great again. You're right. It's making America worse. It's making America more divisive. I still am bitter and will be for a long time that what should have been a wonderful day for every American, our 250th birthday, Donald Trump made it about Donald Trump. And he spends like a whole month debating whether or not Democrats should be spelled with a B. And then you have people, these pundits on Fox News sitting there clamoring on about why can't we get behind our president? You mean the guy that's called me a traitor? The guy that calls me the enemy of the people? The guy that calls me a demon? Why can't I get behind him? Well, because I have a soul and I don't hate black people and brown people or anybody else in any other country. When a MAGA troll sees another troll type, the cookie cutter Trump messages, do they get jealous or do they still unique? I wonder if they like write notes. The one thing, like one of the things that is such a MAGA thing is like the left can't meme, as though memeing is a skill. Their idea of memeing is to take a meme somebody else made and paste it. They have like whole folders of memes and they just like, memeing is not a skill. You know, oh, this flag means you're an idiot or whatever, you know, like all these Ukraine flag, you know. That's their comeback. Their argument is you have a Ukraine flag in your Twitter account. I don't gauge it, buddy. Has your total life energy spent on defending an adjudicated rapist reached 40% yet? I'm just curious. How much of your time and energy is spent defending somebody that just despises your very existence? Agreed. And decades from now, this will be studied just as Adolf was during the 40s, right? Yeah, it's not like it's like people come on my channel and then they get mad at me for like act like I'm the loser for saying the things that I am saying on my channel. Dude, there's like other things you can do with your life. There's other streams on YouTube. You can go wherever you want to do and whatever you want to do, and it won't affect me at all. Your channel history here goes way back. Donald Trump is the most corrupt and will go down in history as the most corrupt and incompetent president in the history of the United States from now and going forward. I can't imagine if Joe Biden had talked about the Islamic Republic of Japan and then looked at Vladimir Zelensky and called him Putin. Can you imagine just the feces flinging that would go on the set of Fox and Friends? It would be morbid. It would be just literal handfuls of poop being slung about. So, hey, Nick, I think this is, have I seen you before? Welcome to the channel. Good comment. If Grant is the racist, sexist, non-constitutional for voter ID, that means okay. First of all, you're making an assumption about what I think about voter IDs. And secondly, you're drawing a similarity between voter IDs and the Second Amendment, which also I don't think is, I don't think they're equivalent. So first, let me tell you what my thoughts on voter ID are. if as long as the election laws are evenly distributed across demographics, I have no problem with voter IDs. And if you look at different places where voter ID laws have passed, they've actually not made any difference one way or the other. Voter ID laws are essentially meaningless. Like, they don't have an impact. They don't disenfranchise people. They're actually, in some ways, some states, they might actually drive up voting by people because it energizes voter registration drives. But the actual postmortem on voter ID laws is it doesn't do anything. So I don't have any problem with voter ID laws. The second part is ID. That means the ID requirement for the Second Amendment has been hurting the same victims, right? No. It's not, because the guns are not the same thing as voting. You can't murder somebody with a vote. You can murder somebody with a weapon. And so the state has an interest in making sure that people that are convicted murderers and now are out on bail or whatever don't get guns, right? Like, there are valid reasons why some people aren't allowed to have guns, and that's why, it's perfectly valid to have, like, the background registration, and you have to prove who you are when you do your background check. It's already been upheld by the court. So they're entirely different things. So, one, I reject your first part of your question about voter ID laws. I don't think it's racist, sexist, or unconstitutional for voter ID. I think it can be, and I think it has been in Jim Crow, but just generally speaking, voter ID laws have not, been an issue. And the second part of your question is, no, they are not equivalent. Trump is the GOAT. Okay. People always say this. What did Trump do that's better than freeing slaves? Voted for Donald Trump should never be allowed to vote in another election. People who voted for ICE, okay, there should be a test about what and how you vote. These are morons. They couldn't pass a simple literacy test. I don't think Donald Trump could pass the simple literacy test, but I'm worried that if you start down that road, then you end up back into Jim Crow. What I think would be cool is if the people that are running had to pass a test. Like, my idea would be, you can't pass a law for it, but you can impose a system, where everybody, just make it a custom that everybody that runs for president has to take the citizenship test, the same exact citizenship test that you have to take to become a citizen, like the naturalization test. If everybody that ran for president took that test and then had to report their scores, at least we know they have a basic understanding of how the country is run. I don't think Donald Trump could pass the citizenship test. And that sure would make him, and all his anti-immigration nonsense, that would expose it. They couldn't pass a simple literacy test. I'm not even sure they know what state they were bleeping born in, or could they name their state capital. They are incompetent bleeping morons. Peak inflation under Joe Biden was 9.7%. Yes, and what? I mean, it was 9.1% for like a month, and it came down after that, and it didn't go up because of Joe Biden. Do you know what post hoc ergo propter hoc means? It means after this, therefore, because of this. Like, it's the whole confusion between causation and correlation. Just because Joe Biden was president while inflation was 9.1%, it does not mean that inflation was 9.1% because of Joe Biden. It was because of a lot of reasons. was because of, was Donald Trump responsible for the drop in unemployment while he was president? If you're going to blame Joe Biden for the 9.1% inflation rate, then you have to blame Donald Trump for all the jobs that were lost while he was president, and you have to give Joe Biden the credit for getting back all the jobs that Donald Trump lost, because it's the same reason. COVID. Actually, there were two different numbers. Some said 9.1, and yeah, and we can agree that it has absolutely nothing to do with anything. It wasn't Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden, America, the inflation rate in America was actually the lowest of all the industrialized countries. It was because of like Brett said, it's because of the supply chain disruption. There's multiple reasons. And, I not to brag, but my brother has a PhD from Wharton. And I was asking him about this. What do you say when Joe Biden, when people say Joe Biden was responsible for inflation? And he literally just looked at me and laughed. And he's now maybe more of a Democrat, but he's a conservative Democrat. He was a Republican. Donald Trump kind of pushed him over to the left a little bit. But he laughed. He just had to laugh. He's like, anybody that ever tells you there is a reason for inflation is an idiot, first of all, And so there's multiple reasons we had inflation. One of the reasons we had inflation, the primary one, is under COVID, all commerce stuff went way down because people weren't traveling, people weren't spending money. They weren't even leaving their house. And not just here in the United States, all over the world. There was just less consumption. Law of supply and demand, right? That's basically the thing that determines prices. When you have less demand, prices go down. When you have more demand, prices go up, right? So because nobody was spending money, nobody was buying things, because nobody was buying things, demand went down, prices went down. Then what happened is the stimmy checks, right? That happened. And the ones under Biden are under Trump. Remember, there was a couple of rounds of them. And there was a stimmy package that came under Trump. And the whole point of stimmy packages is to stimmy. So that, all of a sudden, you had all this money from people that weren't buying stuff, right? Because they were worried they didn't have jobs or whatever. So they went and they spent this money. It was like, I can't remember, like $600 per household or whatever. I bought a new office chair. Not this chair. The one that's in my office. Anyway. Everybody went and spent that money. And then that brought demand back up. And then we had the, but a lot of this stuff happened right around the time that election time. And so the impact of all that didn't start to hit until after Joe Biden became president. And then Joe Biden had another round of checks, which Donald Trump wanted to take credit for too. But it was actually, anyway, Donald Trump probably actually did deserve credit for that because he was trying to sell it still. So, but then there was also the larger stimulus packages, the ones that took care of people that lost their jobs, the ones that took care of people that were going to lose their homes. Because if they didn't get money and if they lost their homes, that would have been catastrophic for the economy. But that infused more money. And then right at that time, the vaccines came out. And the vaccines let people feel safe to go back out. And, for the most part, if you were vaccinated, you were a lot safer. But a lot of idiots denied vaccines and blamed it on Biden for some reason, even though they were developed under Trump. And he, Operation Warp Speed is the one thing I give him credit for. So all that happened. And so now all of a sudden you had, when prices went down, when demand goes down, supply goes down. That's the way the law of supply and demand works. So now supply was down, but now demand was going up. You see how that works? Demand Demand goes down, supply goes down. Now supply goes up, and now our demand goes up, and supply isn't there. So that's one thing, is just the sheer basic supply and demand thing changed the math. The other thing is what Brett was talking about. And so you had things like, because COVID was still, going on all over the world, and we have so many things that depend on things that are in different parts of the world, the computer chips that we use for cars are imported. Right? This is just one thing. And so because we couldn't get those computer chips in our cars, the number of cars being manufactured went down. And so that drove up the price of new cars. But then, because people still needed to buy cars, they started buying used cars. And so the demand for used cars went up too. And so that meant that the price of used cars went up. And so the second, I mean, that's just one example, but overall, the supply chain caused prices to go up also. So that's the second thing. The third thing that caused prices to go up, especially this 9.1% spike that you're referring to, that happened because Russia invaded Ukraine. And afterwards, remember, people want to blame that on Joe Biden as though Joe Biden somehow controlled what Putin did. Joe Biden was the one saying that Putin was going to invade. And then after Putin invades, they're like saying, oh, it's because Joe Biden said he was going to invade. Like, it's just dumb. Right. But anyway, Putin invaded. That caused all kinds of oil disruption supplies all over the world, just like when Trump bombed Iran. Except that the difference is Putin caused it, not Joe Biden. So then when you add those things together with the supply chain disruption and with the all of a sudden, drastic change in supply and demand. And then you add on the stimmy packages where everybody has more money all of a sudden, then that all worked together. So some of it did have to do with Joe Biden's stimulus package, but not all of it, nowhere near all of it. Even conservative think tanks like the Federalists say at most it was like 40% of it, which I think is extremely high, and I think that's overly judgmental, but it's certainly not the whole thing. And it would put it down to about where it is right now if you just account for that part of it. But if you're going to do that, then you also have to consider that his stimulus package was working, and that's why the prices were going back up. People had money. People had jobs. You have to give him credit for all the unemployment numbers coming back up. And people always want to say, oh, well, those are just the jobs that Trump lost, and they're just, that were lost under COVID. They won't say Trump lost them because, that might mean they spontaneously combust or something. But anyway, the jobs that were first gained weren't the jobs that were lost. Like, this because people would complain that they had to wait forever at Arby's because nobody wanted to work at Arby's anymore because they were all working in these other better jobs. And if you look at the Congressional Budget Office did a report in 2020 projecting how long it would take to recover those jobs. And they said if we're lucky, unemployment will be by 2024, it should be down to 6%. If we're doing good. Joe Biden had it down to 20 to under 4% by the end of the year, and it stayed around 4% or under for basically the entire time of his presidency. And he had some of the best unemployment numbers of any president since we started tracking it. But nobody will give him credit for his job numbers. They just blame him for the inflation. But you can't blame him for the inflation without giving him credit for the unemployment, because the unemployment is the reason, the only thing he did that contributed to the inflation. This is what I mean. You need to, Edward, you need to look through and actually consider the whole picture, not just a number, not just post hoc ergo propter hoc. You know what was going on? Yeah, Brett's right. I mean, like, why even pretend that there weren't other factors? I didn't celebrate. Nothing to celebrate with a pedophile rapist in charge. Did Trump get behind E. Jean Carroll? Well, no. Apparently, he got in front of her. And then sexually assaulted her. Oh, by the way, she got paid today. Donald Trump tried to stop it, but he couldn't. Hey, buddy, my cat's over here to my right trying to get some attention. The problem is that either all the presidents can control inflation or no presidents can control inflation. No, different presidents have different policies which differently affect inflation. Tariffs directly affect inflation, right? They are designed to cause inflation. They are designed to make imports more expensive. That is the goal of tariffs. That's why they exist. They're there to protect domestic things. And hi, Huggy Bear. So his policy on inflation, or his policy on tariffs, directly caused inflation. The other thing, the war in Iran, which no doubt has had an effect on oil prices around the world and gas prices in the United States, were a direct policy choice. You want to blame Biden for the Ukrainian issues, but not Donald Trump for the Iranian issues. Even though, one, Biden didn't invade Ukraine. He tried to stop it from being invaded. Donald Trump made the choice to invade Iran. But Biden is the closet gay MAGA men can say. I don't know. Trump has, I just don't talk about closet gays or whatever. Trump hasn't delivered on anything except abusing the vulnerable, which is what MAGA is really all about. I've never heard him like actually talk about something positive. Every speech, he's just talking about, the only way he talks about something positive is if it's how great he is, what a great job he's done. But he just puts down one group of people after another. The current guy is doing it for his own game in market manipulation. And there's that too. We've got a peace deal with Iran. Price of oil goes down. Oh, it's off. Price of oil goes up. Trump made huge improvements to the VA. No, he didn't. The improvements to the VA happened before he even became president. He takes credit for that. He didn't do anything. He didn't close the southern border. He ended the border the right to end asylum. Stop saying stupid things. I know what I'm talking about. I know all the little dogma stuff. I just don't want to go down every rabbit hole. It literally is a Trump crime family. They said Biden crime family. It's all projection. Always. Did I get blocked? No, because I'm reading your comments. I think YouTube handled one of your comments automatically. Yeah, sometimes comments get just automatically filtered. I have no control over that. Neither does Brett. If Brett is my moderator and he does a fantastic job and I trust his judgment. So, but I personally, I very rarely block anybody myself. Mar-a-Lago Mafia is what Asaf says. That's a good one. I also like Epstein class. A lot of comments get held for review by YouTube. Maybe you're being watched. Maybe it's because he keeps making comments that need to be watched. Like, I mean, trolls troll. It's what they do. If they give free voter IDs. Yeah, I mean, that would definitely, like, why? This is like, if we wanted to talk about election integrity, we could talk about election integrity. But like, let's talk about election integrity and not just voter ID, because voter ID and election integrity are not the same thing. Voter ID or election integrity and non-citizens voting is not the same thing. That is an aspect, but it is not the totality. To me, election integrity also means that if you're an American citizen, you are able to vote. Otherwise, there's no integrity to the election. If only people you agree with are allowed to vote, where is the election integrity? Right? And so I'm saying I'm using the extreme deliberately. I'm not saying that anybody is saying that only people they should agree with should vote. But there are people that are not allowed to vote based, under the SAVE Act. People that will not be allowed to vote. American citizens who were born here that won't be allowed to vote because when they were born here, they didn't have a birth certificate issued. And why that is totally irrelevant. I say I am for any bill that will make sure that only American citizens vote, but that every American citizen can vote. That's all I want to say. If you disagree with that second part, then we have a problem. Y'all hear about Count Benface? I love Count Benface. I was trying to see if we could get Count Benface on the ballot in Maine. Count Benface, for those that don't know, is he running for prime minister or something? Anyway, or some kind of seat in England for the parliament, maybe. And there is, anyway, look it up. If they don't matter, then why not just pass it? What is it? You're talking about the SAVE Act? The SAVE Act is not about voter IDs. Did you know this, Arroyo? I'm going to tell you something that might blow your mind. The House version of the SAVE Act didn't even talk about voter IDs. It doesn't even talk about voter IDs. It's not about presenting an ID when you go to vote. That has nothing at all to do with the SAVE Act. The Senate put an amendment on it, which, might get approved, that says that you have to show your ID when you vote. But it's not even part of the original bill. So what is in it then? That's the problem. There's things in it that are a problem, not the voter ID part. One of those things is it prevents people that are American citizens from being able to vote because either A, they don't have a birth certificate or it got destroyed or something. They just don't have a birth certificate. Specifies some different IDs that you can use to prove that you're a citizen. But all the other forms of ID require a birth certificate to get. Okay, so that's one thing, is it actually disenfranchises people. And Arizona has a similar law for voting in state elections. And if you take the number of people that the Supreme Court overturned it for federal elections, saying that it was, it was unconstitutional, but it violated the federal law. And so there are people in Arizona that have, they can vote in federal elections, but not in state elections because they don't have birth certificates. And if you take the percentage of people there and you apply it nationwide, you're talking about 1.5 million to 2 million people that would not be able to vote, period. Not because they don't know how to order a birth certificate. It's because there's no birth certificate to order. It's not a commentary on them being stupid. So don't get me this, oh, you're saying black people are too stupid to vote. No, I'm saying that people that make that argument are too stupid to think. All right. The reality is that some people can't order a birth certificate because there's no birth certificate to order. And it's not through some fault of their own. There are a couple of reasons that people just don't have birth certificates. One, because sometimes they were just not issued when they were born, especially for certain elderly people born in the South in, like before 1950. And there are still some old black people that just don't have birth certificates because they weren't issued. Number two, the reason that people don't have birth certificates is because sometimes the original got destroyed through fire or some sort of, natural disaster or whatever. And it no longer exists. And so they can't order one because it doesn't exist. You can't get what does not exist. Okay. Now there's something in the SAVE Act that says that states can specify how people that don't have a birth certificate can obtain, like the states can determine how they can prove their citizenship without a birth certificate. But right now it's July, the election's in November. There's no time to do that. They have to do it in enough time that it's plausible for somebody to be able to actually do the thing that they need to do. And the states don't even have time to determine what that thing they need to do is. So it effectively disenfranchises 1.5, 2 million people. That's one reason I have a problem with it. Number two, the second reason I have a problem with it is it actually hurts election integrity because it will criminalize anybody that participates in non-citizen voting. All right. Like if they're like willing, but you have people, you have federal agents right now showing up to poll workers who posted an Instagram that says that they're against the SAVE Act or whatever. All right. And so what this is going to do is it's going to have a paralyzing effect on poll workers. People aren't going to go and volunteer for something that could get them thrown in jail when they don't even know what's going on. Okay. So that's number two. If you take out, or the next three, if you take out a significant number of poll workers, then you have less people monitoring the election. And so that makes it less safe. That actually lowers the integrity of the election. The third reason is that they want to force the states to send their voting rolls over to the executive branch of the government, which specifically in the Constitution have no role in the elections. The president of the United States does not have any role in the election for that very reason, that you don't want the president deciding who won the election. And so this is an unconstitutional thing. Another reason is that they require you to go and register in person. You can't, register online. You can't register. You can't have registration drives anymore. Which I think this is probably the real thing they're going after, because they hate registration drives. So there are all kinds, and I could go on, like this voting, this database that they have that's supposed to be run through this unconstitutional thing. It's got like a 20% kickback rate, where it's like it misidentifies citizens as non-citizens for various reasons. All right. So you could have somebody that registered a legal citizen that gets, and then this database, this nonsensical database, kicks it back saying that it was a non-citizen, and then the person that registered them gets arrested for doing something perfectly legal. You think that's going to stifle enthusiasm for election workers? And especially when you got like armed agents sitting there patrolling them. It requires that women that don't have their matching names on their birth certificates and their driver's license have to show other documentation. That assumes they have it. A lot of women do have their marriage certificate. My wife does. Not every woman does. So there are people that are going to be disenfranchised for various reasons. It's going to kill registration drives, which is one of the pulse of democracy, is encouraging people to vote. So if they don't matter, then why not just pass it? Because I just told you. All right. And I hope you can actually take the fact that I took the time to answer your question to heart and actually consider why my reasons might be valid, or at least why they're valid to me, and make the citizens happy. The citizens that are disenfranchised aren't going to be happy. The citizens that are in jail because they registered a legal citizen to vote aren't going to be happy. We don't care about your lecture. Then change the stream. I don't care if you care. YouTube has been censoring the word protest a lot. Interesting. That doesn't change it's keeping it from one person or another, just like, because, so you're going back to the gun thing. Yes, you're keeping guns from murderers. I have a problem. Yeah, I think that keeping guns from murderers is okay. If you think we shouldn't keep guns from murderers, then that's your opinion. But you asked for the legal difference, and that's the legal difference. They're murderers. Google, and the Supreme Court has already upheld this. Even in Heller, they upheld this. Google is a major Trump donor. It makes sense. Voter ID laws aren't meant to keep people who are not supposed to vote from voting, but they will. The SAVE Act, I'm not talking about voter ID laws. I'm talking about the SAVE Act, will keep people from voting who are legal to vote and who want to vote from voting. We know this because Arizona actually has people who vote in elections, in the federal elections, that can't vote in the state elections. And it's been there for 13 years. So they've had time to get their birth certificate. There are people that just simply cannot obtain the documentation that's required in the SAVE Act, but are American citizens. MAGA get pissed when it censors them. And yet they're fine with firing Jimmy Kimmel because he told a Donald Trump joke they didn't like. From the 1993 Immigration Stabilization Act. Title X citizenship, voting limited to citizens. Yeah, I mean, and here's the other thing about this. I've gone through the database that has all these people that voted, the non-citizens that have voted. You know what the non-citizens who voted all had in common? Is they had forged documents. So the SAVE Act wouldn't even prevent non-citizens from voting. It would, out of those 100 cases, it would not have prevented a single one of them from happening. Guns are no longer used as a way of sustaining an individual's life, as in hunting deer. Even gun laws still date back to Jim Crow, though. Yeah. I mean, you don't need a gun to stay alive. Unless you're like in the military and at war or something. You can go to the grocery store and buy a pound of ground beef. And can you explain when the standard that amendment have to be equivalent in order to be treated the same came about? You're the one that treated them as an equivalent. You said, the second and the first and blah, blah, blah. And say, so I'm just pointing out they're not equivalent. And the Supreme Court treats them very differently because they are very different. I mean, I'm sorry if you're false. You're like literally arguing, why can't I use a false equivalence? Because that logic says false equivalence is false equivalence. At best, hunting is a sport, weapons, ammo, camo, four-wheeler. It's not a poor man's hobby that needs the food, especially with shopping markets everywhere. Trump is a fascist traitor, pedophile, oligarch, rapist, incompetent, misogynist, liar, thief, conman, rapist, Russian pawn, homophobia, ignorant fool, 8647, impeach, arrest, and prison. And that's about the nicest thing you can say about him. I'm a former hunter. It got too expensive, and I just woke up. Yeah. I don't have any problem with hunting. I don't have any problem with people owning guns. I just don't think murderers should have them. White supremacist Kelly wants to bring back illegal racist voting tests. I have no idea where you got that from. I literally said the opposite. Somebody was mentioning the idea of tests, and I said, I don't want to do that because that would just open up to Jim Crow laws. I literally said the exact opposite of what you said I want. How did you get? That's like me saying B and you saying Kelly said A. I feel a lot of shame for the man I used to be. I wish some of these MAGA would. Yeah, you shouldn't feel shame. You should feel proud of who you are now. And I mean this regardless. I'm not talking about I'm not saying that the man you were is somebody to be ashamed of. The man you are is a man who grew, who learned from his mistakes, who changed, who took new information in and evolved accordingly. That is what everybody should be like. You're a model of what a human being is supposed to be, Brett. I look at some things of my past and I feel shame, of certain ways that I handled certain situations in the past. But I strive to become better. And that's all we can do as humans is just try to be better people, try to learn. Biden didn't do anything, giving him too much credit. But he did. And how can you give him all the blame, but all the credit? If he didn't do anything, well, how did he cause inflation? Even in food deserts, people don't really even squirrel hunt usually, not the impoverished. They moved to the city because the common land was encapsulated by laws. Can I confess something here? I used to live on a beef farm. And my roommate came home one day with some freshly killed squirrel. He had a 22 or something, and he shot himself a couple of squirrel. He peeled it. Is that what you call it? Skinned it, peeled it, whatever. Anyway, it looks like peeling. And he threw it in the oven with some cream of mushroom soup, and it actually tasted really good. I was surprised. I was a kid. I was like in my young early 20s. I would eat anything. I actually lived in a food desert. You live in a food desert. No, it doesn't make him smart, but it makes him educated on economics. You don't get a PhD from the best economic school in the world without learning something about economics. COVID shut down the country. Biden took credit for job creation when it was people going back to work from COVID. But it wasn't. He actually did create jobs, and there were more people that had jobs after like within a year. We were having the most people in American history, the most employed people, in spite of the fact that boomers were retiring. He didn't take credit for it. Nobody gave him credit for it. And as I said, anyway, but you want to blame all the unemployment, all the inflation was his fault, and none of the employment was his doing, but all the inflation is supposedly because of the stimulus package. Man, you're missing the point, dude. You can't have it both ways. Either inflation was his fault or employment was his. If you're going to blame inflation on him, you have to give him credit for unemployment. If you're going to blame him if you're not going to give him credit for the employment, you can't give him the blame for the inflation. It's logically inconsistent. You don't think that the 2 million illegal immigrants that flooded the southern border had anything to do with inflation under Biden? No, I don't. Biden spent over $1 trillion in government spending during COVID. And what did that do? It stimulated the economy. It gave people jobs. And over $1 trillion. I don't even know how to approach this because it's so dumb. Okay. Biden didn't spend over $1 trillion in government spending. I mean, the government spent over $1 trillion while Biden was president. They actually spent about $28 trillion while Biden was president. They spend $7 trillion every year. Congress appropriated funding for the stimulus packages and the infrastructure deal. Like, he got bills passed while he was president. Congress did. Congress spent that money. Congress. Can you say Congress? And that created jobs. Those jobs created money for the people that had them. And then those people spent the money. And that's one of the reasons that there was inflation. It is far cry from the only reason. You can't separate the inflation from the jobs. You can't just say, oh, he caused the inflation, but not the jobs. That's just dumb. I'm so tired of MAGAs being dumb. And you explain things to them, and they just double down on the stupidity without even acknowledging that you responded to them. Brett, is there a single thing you can point out that might change that? Actually, you're the fool. Use Google for once in your damn life, you piece of garbage. Out of here. This guy couldn't argue himself out of a cardboard box, says the guy that just ran away from even trying to actually challenge anything I said with anything about objective reality. Then go away. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Wally. B-Stock is a troll. Bro can't even Google debunk. Stock 05 is shadow banned for life. Can't stand it when ignorant fools never heard of a phrase, so they just think everybody else is wrong. That's the MAGA way. If they didn't hear it on Fox News or come out of Trump's mouth, it must not be true. They even say things like, like you'll say something that's just objectively, factually true, and they'll be like, oh, is that what they told you on CNN fake news? Like as though CNN reporting something makes it false. I used to be one of those idiots too. Supply and demand, that's not manipulated. By who? You make it sound like there is a single person, manipulating. You still are all over the world. Yes. Okay. Hey, buddy. My cat, Huggy Bear. Brett, we are all an idiot once. My own father was a Reddit moderator. I wish I was joking, but he was a little stereotype of the term. Technically, nuh-uh, when they were wrong. I think everybody has. Anyway. Trump says he is smart since his uncle went to MIT. Does that make you a genius because your brother has a PhD? I didn't say that I'm a genius because my brother has a PhD. I was just pointing out that my brother has a PhD in economics, so he might know something about economics. Hello. If it makes you feel any better, he went to the same school as Donald Trump, but he got a PhD instead of just getting a bachelor's degree that somebody else earned for him. Hang on 1 second. Hey, Google Broadcast.
What's the message?
Can you come get Huggy Bear? I think he wants to go outside.
All right. Broadcasting now.
Sorry. Just got to use the Google to So this guy's
find info about something.
Hey Google.
Ask.
Hey Google.
You can say something like, "How long is the?"
Okay. This racist, this hilarious. I have I don't know. Someday there will be proof. Someday I'll prove this thing that I don't know what I'm talking. Whatever, dude. It's just what is some people you don't even know what they're talking about or why they're talking. Doesn't matter. She's getting paid. Who's getting paid? You're the reason I hate linguistic diffusion. People genuinely love misusing that term on the right. Meow meow. Yeah, Huggy Bear is a good cat. I love my cat. The cat only has one eye. Oh, that was his butt. That's right. I made a song about my cat's butt, but I won't sing it to you. More cat. Everybody loves Huggy Bear. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. The low IQ stutter got me dead. I don't stutter. The guy telling others to stop saying stupid things. All right. Some people, they have no desire to, okay, it looks like Brett already got him. Some people have no desire to contribute to any conversation. They just seem to go around the streams and just say insults and don't contribute. John is no longer among us because John is one of those people. If you want to have, I'm happy to engage with differences of opinion, but just say, oh, he's stupid. That's not an opinion. That's just an ad hominem attack. John Whitewing had a hidden channel too. He literally said that earlier. I said what? About the Jim Crow? He even said MAGA didn't know how the government works and he thinks the president runs the FBI. The president does run the FBI. I mean, at least under the president appoints the director of the FBI, and the FBI is under the authority of the president. Previous presidents have actually tried to distance themselves from the FBI since Richard Nixon. Donald Trump has gone against that trend. Dude, do you know what a unified executive theory is? That's Donald Trump's whole shtick. It's every court case he has. He fired James Comey because he wouldn't do what he said to do. My goodness. It's like he doesn't even know this thing that's not true. We have the tech. We could literally do universal voter ID. We could have it like Obama phone. You're given to vote on. I'd have to see how that works. I have issues with magic tricks. I don't. There are countries that have universal voter ID, but they have this like a system in place. They could just process everybody's social security number right now and hand them out just like. Now that's a possibility, using social security numbers. But some people have social security numbers that aren't citizens, and it doesn't distinguish between citizens. Like you can have a green card and a social security number. Okay, Johnny. What are the like, Johnny? You're just saying silliness. You're not like you don't know what you're talking about, dude. And I'm not going to sit there. I read the SAVE Act. You clearly haven't. It could get a little messy, but if we do it like French IDs, that's self-verified due to the numbering being math that equals a code the government has, if that makes sense. But I mean, somebody could say, well, can't somebody just hack that? Restream bot is being timed out for a few minutes. You have an exploit user spamming through it. Oh, interesting. Through the Restream? Johnny, I'm just ignoring you because you're not saying anything. Hopefully Kelly sees it in about 30 minutes. So it's 23 minutes. It's 11. Maybe that's like when I was hitching up there. I think I had my upstream was burping. Okay. Somebody says you can request a new one, idiot. If there's one to be requested. Some people, there is not one to request. That's why I bring up Arizona, where it's been the law for 13 years. Some people simply do not have one to request. I went through a great deal of effort explaining and delineating between being able to order one and not being able to order one. Did you, like, are you deaf? Some people, if somebody is born and no birth certificate is issued when they're born, there is no birth certificate to request. If somebody's birth certificate is burned down in a fire, they can't request one because it's not there. You can't request what doesn't exist. The requesting one assumes that there is an original which can be requested. And, like a duplicate of the original. You can't duplicate an original when the original doesn't exist. So Johnny's. Oh, Brett's ahead of me on the blocking. It's just at least try to argue in good faith. If I already addressed something, don't sit there and just say, no, that's not true, without looking it up. I know it's true because I looked it up before. That's how I know it. Dude, you have no idea what I'm talking about. That doesn't mean I don't. It just means that you have opinions that are based on ignorance and lies. I read the SAVE Act. You haven't. Nothing I said isn't true. I have a story. I lost all my IDs, so I ordered my IDs to a location where I could pick them up. Location required IDs to pick up my IDs. Russell says I have all these people that he has no idea what he's talking about. As though they understand. If you knew what you were talking about, you would know I know what I'm talking about. I had to go to the other channel when I got a chance. And oh, so he was on the landscape channel. Interesting. I was born in America, and thankfully the person decided to give me my mail anyway because I had a school ID that will not be legal for that purpose. They were willing to look over. Yeah. Fortunately, you had a decent person. Dusty, you can go to the hospital and get your medical records and use that to get your birth certificate. What if your hospital burned down? Like a lot of people, their hospital burned down. There are people that don't have, this is not a hypothetical situation. There are people that literally just do not have original birth certificates to request. That's not a theory. That's an actual fact. And arguing about how they can get the original birth certificate when the original birth certificate either A, was never issued, or B, was destroyed, does not mean that it doesn't create some kind of alternate timeline where it suddenly springs into existence. This is not the Marvel Cinematic Universe where you can just change the reality of the space-time fabric. Says the guy that's still saying the same stupid things. All right, so anyway, when I said IDs, I meant every form of ID, including birth certificate. I had to get an ID to get my birth certificate. My birth certificate came in mail to place that required ID. And that's another thing, is some people have trouble getting their birth certificates because they don't have an ID to get the birth certificate. It's a catch-22. They can't get a ID because they don't have a birth certificate to show. Democrats are trying to cheat and whining about rules. How are Democrats trying to cheat? What way are we trying to cheat? How are we cheating? What cheating? What cheating are we doing other than made up stuff? We're not the ones trying to change the rules. Literally, you're trying to change the rules and whining. That's the SAVE Act is literally trying to change the rules and whining about stuff that doesn't happen. Thankfully, it was not hard to get anything medical happening because I had free medical services to services close to where I lived. That was the easy part. The hard part was convincing DMV that I had enough ID. Brett had a similar situation where they made a typo on his birth certificate, so they couldn't find it. Despite being a natural American, and even despite having the right IDs at a certain point, after several people gave me the benefit of the doubt, several DMV workers didn't believe me. I keep having to switch channels. I'll just stay over here and handle the exploits. It took 3+. Which one are you on right now? The big one or the little one? I'll delete any. I can take care of anybody that's just spamming and just being stupid. It took 3+ years to get fully documented as a legal documented American citizen. And you are a citizen trying to get your own document. Are you uneducated, poor, and desperate, but know it's someone else's fault? Try MAGA. Call now to receive a bonus freedom coin to prove your patriotism. Only $239.99 or $299.99. Is there a tariff on that? There's probably a tariff on that coin. We could have people that voting state elections shouldn't vote state elections because they are illegals. And now they're going to be, if they vote in the federal elections and are illegal because of, that's not even a cogent sentence. You cannot vote in a federal election if you are a non-citizen, full stop. And there are very, very limited cases in very few cities where non-citizens can vote in school board elections because they have children in those schools. That's it. And those are just local laws. They are not federal laws. They don't allow people to vote in federal elections, and they're very clearly indicated that they can only these are only allowed to vote in those elections. Fact check something. I need it. I'm trying to deal with these MAGA idiots all the time. God will never answer your prayers. I'd be more concerned with your mental health, considering you're the one that has to come to these channels. I know who you are. I hunt for all my meat, and the Second Amendment is to prevent a tyrannical government invasion. No, the Second Amendment is not. You know how I know that that's not why the Second Amendment is? Like the very first implementation, as the Second Amendment gave states the rights to arm themselves and have an armed militia. And it was so that they could have militias. It was all about the militias. The whole thing was about the militias. It was never about guns. It was about militias. Because the Articles of Confederation didn't give the federal government any chance, any means to defend itself against insurrection. So there was an insurrection. They put down the insurrection. And then they went through all kinds of debate. And they rejected language about personal gun rights. They just included the language about the militia. Then, after they passed the Second Amendment and ratified the Constitution, one of the very first laws that they passed as a Congress was the First and Second Militia Act. And then, not long after that, there was a rebellion in Pennsylvania where it was called the Whiskey Rebellion, where, believe it or not, it was over taxes. They were overtaxed. They rebelled. The taxes were too high on whiskey. And so they took up arms against the government, that's tyrannical government. And the taxes were higher than they were under the king before the whole thing started. And so George Washington didn't order, didn't command the troops. He rode his horse at the front of the pack and led the army to go put down that insurrection. Now, disbanded before he got there. But the militia literally was there to put down the insurrection. And it says in the Constitution that the militias are there to put down insurrections. So no, it's not there so that the people can arm themselves against a tyrannical government. It's literally there so that the tyrannical government can put down the insurrections. Have you ever read the Constitution? Do you think that the militia in the Second Amendment is divorced from the militia in Article 2 and Article 1? Goodness gracious. It's like arguing with a block of wood. Don't say it's save money. Anyway, deep down, you don't even know why you do it. Oh, second Mike, that's chill. I love hunting. If I could hunt, I would hunt for venison every year. I don't have a problem with people owning guns. I really don't. I don't know why we need to have AR-15s and, mags with 50, 50 round mags in them. I don't think you need to like shred Bambi with lead in order to kill him. AR-15s aren't even good hunting rifles. And no, the Second Amendment isn't there for hunting either. The Second Amendment is there to arm the militias. That's why it starts off saying that. Why don't you? And Heller is wrong. And before anybody wants to bring up Heller is a crappy decision that any decent lawyer would tell you that it's crap. Oh, second Mike, that's I don't hunt anymore. Hunting is way, so we're just. Why don't you go to the grocery store if you can afford the internet? Trump is just presenting how does he have the internet if he's like anyway? Some of these people act like they get by on their own manhood. They're like trad husbands or something. Trump is, they grow all their own food and kill their own deer, and they harvest their own vegetables, and they never buy food, but somehow they have jobs where they make all of this money that they don't spend but gets taxed or whatever. There's just like they live in this myth of themselves. Trump is just representing the country that it was founded on. Pedophilia. I don't know about I don't know if, well, I mean, I guess Thomas Jefferson raped little girls. Introspecting is a good thing. Realizing your actions have consequences and striving to be better is a good thing too. I agree. Hunting should only be for the severely impoverished. I watch people get $10,000 4-wheelers, $6,000. You watch Eric Trump and Donald Trump go in these controlled things where they kill endangered species, and they act like they're some sort of great man because they can pull a trigger. There's a whole breed of hunter that convinces themselves that they're doing the world of service by control. I'm surprised that MAGA has not actually come out against hunting because of Hunter Biden. Like, I thought you loved Hunter. Anyway, squirrel goulash, squirrel chops, squirrel and crew, squirrel souffle. Wow, somebody's had a lot of squirrel. I think rich or impoverished. Okay, let's see if we can move past the hunting contest. I was being sarcastic with my MIT remark. I don't know what that was. Lazy white supremacist Kelly can't even take care of his own cat. My cat is black, dude. Didn't you notice? James Comey walked in Trump's office with a fake story about some dossier. And I'm not even going to entertain this nonsense. No, this never happened. This whole story that you're telling absolutely is fake. It didn't happen. I'm not gonna spend half an hour talking about it. It's just nonsense. We don't know what's in the SAVE Act. I've read the SAVE Act. I have read the SAVE Act. You don't know what's in it. I do. I read it. That's how I know it's in it. Okay, anyway. Somehow. All right. Bye, John. It wasn't nice knowing you. And we're just going to pretend that a career FBI director, career in law enforcement, dude pretended to come up on an 80. Are you seriously implying that a career FBI agent and former FBI director arranged the seashells and then made it out to say 8647 and posted it on Instagram as a message to somebody to go and assassinate the president? And I think that, yes, anybody can sit there. Like, I have no problem believing that some rando just put 8647 in seashells and then James Comey took a picture of it and posted it on Instagram. I have no problem. Like, there's 8646 t-shirts that you can buy on Amazon. It's not like 8647 is some sort of secret code that Antifa has. Goodness gracious. Logical consistency. Yeah, but you don't care. Like, it's just, I don't have time to go into all of this nonsense about this whole conspiracy with the P tapes and all of that. Nobody investigated Trump because the P tapes. And if you look at, which is another thing I read, if you actually go and you look at the report, he says in that dossier that he hasn't verified everything in there, and not all of it's true. The dossier barely played into the investigation at all. It was like a footnote. They started the investigation into Russia, not Trump, into Russia before they even knew the dossier existed. But they don't tell you that on Fox News. You've got it all wrapped up in your little muddled MAGA head that somehow James Comey walked into Trump's office and slapped the dossier on his desk and said, "See, you're peeing on little girls or something." Dude, be literate. If you have $1 million total, do you know how to create inflation? It has nothing to do with jobs. All you have to do is, my goodness. All right. Technically, there's nothing on a birth certificate that says you're a citizen. So that can be changed with the stroke of a pen. It's amazing that nobody wanted this until they were told to. Why shouldn't we have universal ID? Every other democracy has. Well, I don't know if every other democracy has it. Other democracies have it. Some do. Not every country has one. And because one of the reasons we don't have a universal ID is that our elections are done differently, constitutionally speaking. It would our whole heritage is there's the federal government and there's the state governments, and states have always determined how to register to vote and all of that kind of stuff. There's never been a national registry because states do it. States do it because the Constitution says states do it. It says the states do the time, manner, and place of elections, and that's kind of part of manner, I guess. And then Congress can regulate that, but Congress has always just been a regulatory. They don't mandate how you do it, so they can say, like, you can't do racist laws. You can't be racist about it, and like the Voter Rights Act. But we don't have universal IDs because we don't have a universal citizen database. Other countries, they do, but other countries that have it don't have our Constitution, so it'd require a literal constitutional amendment. Are you delusional, bro? You're straight up lying. Or no, I'm not. I'm neither lying nor delusional, which is why you can't say what I am lying about or what I am delusional about. Some governors declared a state of emergency because we were in the middle of a pandemic, Republican and Democratic governors, by the way. And because of that, we're able to adjust how the voting laws were done. And in those cases, the Supreme Court determined that the emergency powers the governor had allowed for them to do that. This was all heard out in court. And it wasn't just Democratic governors. And it was actually just governors not wanting to have their citizens die when they were voting. Kelly, everyone, have a good night. I witnessed too much homegrown stupidity tonight. We're going to hit the bar. The channel that drives people to drink. Anyway, I think I'm going to have to go to. I'm kind of. You MAGAs are just weird. There's no, just come up with all this insanity. So somebody says Trump is our only hope, and then CCN's word says, if one man is your hope, doesn't that mean your society failed? U.S. was built for a coalition, not kings. Great comment. I like that. All right, so that's it. I'm out. I hope you have a great time. Have a great rest of your day.